Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track podcast. Awesome guest back on by popular demand. I think Mr. Matt Bradney. How are you?
Hi there, Ryan. You well?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. And as always, my co-host Russ. How are you, Russ?
Very good, thanks, mate. Very good, thank you.
Awesome. Now I'm really looking forward to this one. Obviously, Matt, you've been on before talking about business and your business and your various bits, but I thought it was a really poignant time to get on and talk about all the sort of work we've been doing in the background and where the industry or where we feel the industry is at the moment. Now, it probably might be worth caveating this a little bit in terms of giving a bit of a background in terms of where you come from, and especially linked to your dad,
Yep.
because he was quite instrumental in the development of the FIA back in the day.
He was, yeah. So, I mean, we're going back a long way now. My dad set up Life Fitness in the UK, I think it was 1987. So we're going back into the distant past. And when he set that up, he also at the time brought in Star Trek, Kaiser, things like that. So because Life Fitness only had a bike and a row machine at that point, so he was quite instrumental. And at that point, he went across to the States and he met with loads of people and he saw what URSA was, and he looked at URSA and he went, "Wow, we should have that in the UK," because we were quite fledgling at that point, and the industry hadn't got these massive chains popping up or anything like that at that point. And so he came back to the UK, and he met with a bunch of people, and the chains were starting to pop up, like Fitness First and things like that, and Homes Place, things like that. So he met with a bunch of people. They all got together and they decided they would form a UK version of URSA. And initially they hired Bob Patton or Payton. I'm not sure, never really known how to pronounce that. I've known Bob a long time, but they set that up, and it grew from there, really. And Life Fitness were very instrumental and funded a lot of UK activities, FIA activities in the initial days. And it was there to become something like URSA, but for the UK. And it's moved a long way from that now, as we know. A lot of people will know my views on it already.
Well, that's what you're here to discuss.
Yep. And so I'll go over that ground again. Steve Scales, if you're watching, you know everything I'm about to say. So I've rehearsed it all with you before. So yeah.
I mean, it's quite interesting actually, because when the FIA was set up, I mean, I've been in the industry for 27 years, I think now. It might even be longer. And I came into it with the FIA and the things they used to do in terms of the promotions and the activity. And I thought at the time it was a really valid institution. And it's a bit of a shame because when you speak to people now, a lot of people hark back to the days of the FIA, what's going on. But also then you get some of them going, it was nothing better than a golf day. And you're like going, that's a little bit unfair. I mean, they did some amazing stuff.
I think that's really awful when someone says that, and I hate that. It had its problems. Of course, it had its problems. And it was centered mainly around helping fitness market itself, which I think has just fallen away by the wayside massively over the years. So, yeah. So in those days, we had things like Commit to Get Fit, which again was originally a Life Fitness thing. And was given to the FIA to use as a phrase, and it became something enormous. I mean, anyone our age in the industry remembers Commit to Get Fit. It was bloody brilliant in the summer, 6 weeks, quietest time, selling loads of memberships. We sold hundreds and thousands of them.
We still run them now, though. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
we work together, but it's not just your club that I push that with because it's so successful.
It is. It's just a
6
brilliant
weeks
model.
over your quietest period.
Yeah. And they came up with things like Fit for Business. They were the very early days of selling corporate memberships to businesses and things like that. And we had all the packs arrive, and it enabled me to go out and talk to companies about how wellness amongst their employees, which was unheard of. And the FIA did that, but apparently they just put on a good golf day, and that's just not what it was about. But I understand the world is different now and things have changed, and it did need to adapt. But I think it's lost its way, and it's just gone so far from its original purpose into whatever it is now that it's of no use anymore. And I think that's really sad as an industry. I think we're kind of rudderless where we weren't before. We were all singing the same message: get in there, do some exercise, stuff like that. Whereas now it's all about, get out there and do some exercise rather than get in there. And that upsets me hugely, as people know. I mean, promoted dog walking over going to the gym, for God's sake, I ask you.
Yeah, no, I'm the same belief. I sort of understand that they wanted change, and just to caveat this isn't an attack on any one institution within the industry, but I think if you look at the whole industry as we stand at the minute, we are rudderless. I think that's the best way to describe it. We don't have anyone looking out for the whole of the industry. The focus seems to be either big players or the leisure trusts.
Yep.
And what's happened is the independent clubs, the franchises, the hotel chains, all of those smaller organisations, even with multiple clubs, but smaller clubs have effectively been just pushed to one side, and it's all about the big boys. And when you look at it, you're sort of going, that's not benefiting the whole of the industry. It's benefiting a small majority, and then we're not moving forward.
Well, I think it's also not, and I'll jump in with something to say. So I was very interested listening to Matt's background, which I actually wasn't aware of some of that. So I didn't just want to sit
it's
here.
more my dad's background than me, but yeah.
All right, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also just the fact. I think the part that concerns me is not just what is happening right now, and I feel like it's more Wild West than it's ever been. I think it's the protection of the future. It's more where it's actually going and where this is really going to end for operators. Because I can't see, unless people start to take some real action and start to take the bull by the horns on this, of it ending anywhere except 2 or 3 big players who absolutely operate and just control all ends of the market, and everything else is crushed. Because that's exactly what's happening right now. It's happening in every town in the country, and I don't see that there is any protection from the governing bodies to stop that. So it's as much as what's happening right now, and people are surviving or not surviving, but it's not en masse closures. But I think it's going. I think it's 100% going that way, and I don't see that there is any protection or any kind of recognition of the value of what smaller operators really bring to the industry, and how they evolve it. I think it's all about allowing the big operators to come in, and that evolution really scares me on what's actually going to happen for just the general consumer, the lack of choice, what they're actually going to get. So yeah, that's the way that I look at it right now.
I think that conversation's been had many times over the years. Initially, it was Fitness First, LA Fitness. They started to grow massively and dominate the market, and then that sort of slipped away, and the low-cost operators came in, and then the gap, the squeezed middle, which seems to be the phrase that's used all the time in this country, every single way we look at things, is the squeezed middle. So the premium operators did well, and then the low cost came in, and they followed the German model of McFit and things like that. Has really changed the whole industry significantly. And I take the point that the future is it's a Wild West, and these clubs are just growing, etc. Blah blah blah. I mean, the way I operate my club is that when something like a Pure Fitness or a gym group opens, they're not going after my members. My members won't be interested in that so much, because we're definitely a customer service place. We're not rent a treadmill, which is much more the model they go for. We'll lose some, and that'll probably hurt us, but only for a time. We've had the local authorities, I feel, because that's massively unfair when they spend £30 million on a local leisure centre, and the local authority that's your main competition is also the governing body that looks after your health and safety, also tells you which temperature you can run the swimming pool, also does the planning, also does that. It's just a farce that the leisure centres can grow like they have done across the country in these massive leisure trusts. They're the ones that bug me more.
I think people don't understand that either, in terms of how monopolistic that whole process is. You effectively got one set of agency that's advising the local council. The local council obviously want a vanity project because it makes them look good. It's nothing about commercial or what the local area needs half the time. And then the whole thing is just a closed book. So only certain people can apply for it in terms of getting that. The funding they get is of a off the scale low levels because it's comes from a national government fund.
Yep.
That's almost handed to a private organisation that doesn't pay tax because they're under some charity guise. And then the people who are doing the planning decisions are making decisions on their own project. And you're like going, so if I go to build a gym, I've got to go through that whole planning and it could get rejected. A leisure centre will never get rejected because they've got the whole. So where's the checks and balances in any of this? I mean, you look at some of them. Brighton's building a £65 million leisure centre. Now, you tell me where the value in that is and where the return on investment in that is. I just cannot see it. And you're sort of going, I've no issue with the local council building swimming pools and whatever. But all they're doing is they're coming in and they're basically butchering the market that's already there.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, we haven't grown any. In my 27 years, we've grown 3% in terms of engagement with the public. And yet they're still building these £65 million. I mean, even David Lloyd's aren't building £65 million centres. And look how beautiful they are.
Yeah,
So
stunning things. Stunning.
So you've got to ask, what the hell are the council building and wasting huge amounts of money on when actually in their area? I mean, classic example, when yours was built, the one near you, you weren't even included in the report to say what's in the local area.
No, didn't even appear in the study that was done by Sport England. We weren't even mentioned. And we've been here 34 years now as a gym, which unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And the thing that to take that one step further is, of course, they don't even pay VAT on their membership, so they're getting 20% more than us before the people even walk into the door. And they act in a very commercial manner, and it's just not a level playing field. Now, again, I don't want to bash them because they do have their place, but they're doing, and they do lots of stuff for people that can't afford normal things, and they do lots of different sports that wouldn't perhaps exist on a local level without leisure centres. But when it's straight comparison between their gyms and our gyms on pricing, etc., they're a huge advantage over us. Huge.
I think on that though, Matt, it's again. So I am more. I mean, I really have strong opinions on the budget operators. So I won't. Maybe not quite the forum for it, but I think it's kind of the same process as when I've been an operator in towns, and they're just the lack of consideration for the landscape. So that's an example that you weren't even listed in the report. Boring, Ryan already. Off he goes. There he's.
He's gone.
He's gone. He's out.
Oh, he's back. He's back.
Apologies, I was listening. The dogs met the postman.
I think it's just that lack of consideration of a landscape in a town or in an area. Actually, is it meeting the needs of the people in that area? And actually, some operators, and it's great. Obviously, you've been there for a very long time, so you're sort of part and parcel of the area. But I think
you could say I'm old. You could say I'm old. Yeah, you could say
that. But I think it's just that lack of looking at does the area even need a gym? What are the gyms doing at the moment? If we actually thought about it and thought, well, are the gyms there maybe not meeting the needs? Is there a consultation period with the gyms on that are there? Well, could you do this? Could you improve your offering? Could you change this? Rather than, okay, well, we think there's a space, or we don't think there's a space for another operator, but we're going to put one in anyway, and bugger what happens to the existing clubs who've been there. And I think that's the part that not just with the leisure centres, but just with any of these massive landscaping change clubs, if you've got a club that's going to come in and it's going to be £10 a month, and they can afford to do that for as long as they want to before they get to 5,000-10,000 members and squeeze out everyone else, that's the part that the future really kind of scares me, because like I say, if they wanted to, and they do in some towns, if they haven't got to their number, they just sit on that price for as long as they can, and then that really does take out the competition. So that's the part that worries me.
I think with politicians, etc., I think we only have to look at something like greengrocers or all the other things that supermarkets have done over the years and squashed butchers and bakers. They've all just disappeared from high streets, and supermarkets have done that, and then they put the prices up. once they've got rid of everybody, they then start putting their prices up, don't they?
The irony now
but-
is the government's got obviously got a concern about the high streets,
Yeah.
and so because when we were
They've
talking to
destroyed.
MS, they were like, "Oh, can we look at the high street program and so on?" And it's just like, so you've allowed these big organisations to pretty much rape the high street because that's what they've done, and now you're desperate to get some sort of business or leisure facility.
Well, there was I mean, in the high street where I used to live, they Debenhams opened a good behemoth of a store. God knows it was like might have been 100th. I wouldn't even put a number on it. It was over 3 floors, absolutely enormous. It closed like because of the landscape and what they've done. The place closed obviously when they went under. Now there's just tens and tens of thousands of square feet that are just there, just going to waste. It's
we talk. I mean, the conversations about the industry and where it's heading, etc. And one of the things that I've got a real bee in my bonnet about at the moment is the business rates. Mine are going up around about 60%. My business rates this year, and I've not seen UK Active mention it once in the press anywhere. I've been looking. I've been trying to find it. And the main reason I can only think of is because leisure centres get 90% discount anyway. They don't care about business rates. It's not really on their radar. Whereas it's not part of the conversation. Pubs have a massive campaign. They managed to get their business rates reduced, all that worked, and we've done nothing as an industry. Absolutely nothing.
But it was the same as COVID. Let's be honest. Now, I appreciate no one could have been ready for COVID. That just came upon us. But I think the reaction from those that were allegedly our governing bodies was really poor. And I think the first place they wanted to take MPs to was Pure Gym, which is just not a reflection of the wider industry in any shape or form. And you sort of going, hold on a minute, guys. The reaction to it was slow. And then in terms of coming out the back end, you're actually showing people the wrong idea.
COVID was an awful time and a terrible time. And I think, between Pure Gym and Gym Group and David Lloyd, etc., I think they all funded some sort of study to show that gyms are actually some of the safest place. And I have to say where I found UK Active quite useful during lockdown. I got information. Because at the end of the day, the government were waiting till the day before they told us what we could do, what were we supposed to be doing, what we were doing, and then they changed their mind. Whereas UK Active, actually, they sent out all the information. I had one of their officers would call me up and tell me what we should be doing, what we're allowed to do, were we allowed to open the swimming pool, were we not, how many people could we have in that swimming pool. I got all that information through UK Active, so I have to give due where credit's due. I thought, for me, they were quite useful through the lockdown, but they weren't the most vocal. They weren't the most vocal like the pubs were. First to shut, last to open. That was us, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And coming back to the government stuff, I think we've talked about this a lot in terms of the campaigning that we do. I think 25 years or something, we've still been campaigning for VAT discounts.
Longer than that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But we were told categorically not long ago, at the start of January, that will never happen. And now, surely there comes a point where we go, okay, let's stop trying to, I don't know, curry favour and get these sorts of discounts. That ain't ever going to happen. And let's look at alternative routes. And I think with all the campaigning that's being done, and I can't fault the effort because they're always in Parliament. But what have we actually achieved? And is national government and trying to get to be part of the NHS and all this, is that the right approach for an industry that really, I don't think we're ready to be linked up to the NHS. I mean, let's be honest, most clubs can't do a standard onboarding effectively, let alone start. I know you do GP referral, so you're already there, but even GP referral is very short on the ground when it comes to private clubs.
Yeah, I think, the NHS is just so enormous. And I think it's already in such a mess that I'm not sure our industry is ready for the NHS, but I don't think NHS is ready for us either. I'm not sure I'd want them to come in and ruin our bloody industry and break it all even worse than it is now. Do you know what I mean? we do a good job. I'm quite pleased with what we do in our little place. I go to many clubs, and I think, the vast majority are run very well. The private sector seems to do things much more efficiently than the public sector. I'm trying to find the right way to say that. In a way, with the amount of money that's thrown at the public sector, if they did get their act together and operate like the private sector did fully, we'd all be in trouble. So I'm glad they don't. But you've got the likes of David Lloyd; they do great stuff. All the operators that offer service, I think, do good stuff. Some of the low cost, of course, their model is not to offer service. Theirs is rent a treadmill, rent a chest press. That's fine if it works for people that can motivate themselves. But the vast majority, as we know, can't. And that's where the private sector comes in, I think.
No, absolutely. I just think there's an opportunity here to go more local, rather than trying to get that national government support. Because I think even when we were talking to DCMS, they're very much those decisions are made locally. Mm-hmm. So it's almost to go, actually, where should the main effort of these conversations go? Because central government don't influence local government in the way that we probably think they do. So we could get a national program, but it's not going to filter down into these local authorities, which ultimately they're the ones building the clubs. They're the ones deciding on where that money's spent. And I think if we can have a stronger tie to the LGA and those sorts of organisations, we're more likely to get included in the package. So when they're looking at local packages, I think there's a real opportunity to sort of go, okay, what's in our local area? What can we deliver as a programme to include those? So if you're spending £65 million on a leisure centre, surely 5% of that, 2% of that can be allocated into community programmes which include the private sector.
Almost like a Section 106 for housing development. So when they build housing development, they have Section 106. The housing developers have to give them a bunch of money to the local council to fund all the infrastructure. And what you've suggested there is that kind of thing, that when they're building a massive leisure centre, maybe they should put some money into the infrastructure that surrounds that thing. So like us, we found when the leisure centre opened, we lost quite a lot of members to it initially, and then they all started creeping back, over the years, because they crave the people. It's the people that, we're a people business. That's what we do. And that's why I think, Russ, we'll win eventually over the low cost operators, because we're a people business. I think it may be a rough few years, but I think eventually, I can't see the industry going down a non-person route long term. I can't.
I hope you're right.
I do too, but I'm an optimistic chap, and that's the way I feel. I think people buy from people. We're finding all these 24-hour places at the moment. It's all quite trendy, and people are doing that stuff, and there's no one there. It's all monitored by cameras, and that works for the time being, I think. But again, when it's all said and done, people need people. Yeah.
Mm. Well, I guess though it's almost going to be on an individual basis, and if you do have someone that comes in, it's just how many we lose on the way, or the how much people can bounce back from the losses. If you're already running a facility and you're sort of borderline, and you have one of these come in and you lose 30-50% of your members, some people can bounce back. Some people can't. Yeah.
That's the biggest challenge, is the control of the overheads, because we've seen, the massive increase in overheads since COVID is just astronomical. Energy prices going up loads. Even the people that walk in on two legs, they've gone up. Everything just keeps going up and up and up, and the members, because of these low cost operators, keep going, well, why are you charging me so much money? That is a challenge. We feel that. We definitely feel that.
And because we're a people business, I'm not saying people shouldn't get paid what they're worth, but the cost of people is now a lot higher than it used to be as well. And you need those bodies. You can't operate one of these clubs and lose the personal touch. And we touch on this at some point in every pod. So actually, I'm interested to sort of know how in particular, I guess, you are sort of differentiating yourself. Then, what is the kind of the human touch that is really working?
I mean, without sounding too cheesy, it's definitely the community side of things. It's definitely. I've been to so many clubs over the years where they do events for people. They make it somewhere people really want to hang out, and that's got to be the future for us as an industry. Is that we're seeing it with the next generation of people. They're not hanging out in pubs quite so much. They're starting to hang out in other places like gyms. And so we've definitely seen a real shift where we're starting to become a more social space than we used to be. It used to be definitely get on the machines and we'll see you down the pub afterwards. That's not happening anymore. People spending longer in the club now. The swimming pool area that we have, you can sometimes go down there and it's absolutely rammed with people just sitting around chatting in their swimming costumes. It's like it's like a mini holiday, I guess. And that's definitely where we differentiate from the big places like the leisure centre that we've got down the road, and possibly these low cost, because we create the community spaces for people to actually spend time together and engage.
Well, I think it's quite funny actually. Funnily enough, I was at a David Lloyd yesterday. I was giving one a try. It opened near me. It's not. It's actually it's fantastic. It's just not a fit for me. But one of the things I really noticed on that point was the younger generation not going to the pubs. It was absolutely full of like lads in their late teens. Like it was absolutely round. Like the spa bit was round with them. They're all just hanging out there as opposed to being down the pub watching the football. It was like this is their hangout, going to the David Lloyd spa.
Yeah. And it's not how I was raised, because trust me, I've grew up in a pub. I spent a lot of time in pubs, so I've had a lot of money off me over the years. But it's changed, and we need to adapt as an industry for that. And David Lloyd is a perfect example. I used to be a member of a David Lloyd, and yeah, it was definitely about creating spaces for people to do things, which we've done that too. We've done that here. We're a lot smaller. I'm not even comparing me remotely to a David Lloyd, but definitely in our wet side area, there's a real community spirit there. You see the jacuzzi be absolutely rammed with people all shouting at each other because they can't hear each other.
It's the same as your classes, though, Matt. Your classes are rammed. It's. Yep. I mean, we were looking at making some changes the other week, weren't we? We're like going, well, we just can't do it because all those classes are full. So what do we do? So I think that makes a big difference as well. And just pulling this back to the sort of industry, Matt, in terms of what you'd like to see in terms of obviously we've got UK Active in place, we've got SimSpa, and obviously UK Sport England sits under there as well. What would you like to see in terms of to help you as a gym owner? Going forward, what are the elements that you sort of go, this is what we're lacking, this is where the focus should be?
A great question, that. I think having spent quite a bit of time in the States and spoken to various people from URSA over the years, or whatever it's called now, it's called the fitness industry. What's it called now? I don't know. I forget now.
I can't think.
Fitness Association or something. Yeah, anyway, URSA, I'm going to still call it URSA because that's what I know it as. URSA exists to support private fitness. It started in the rackets world. And if you look at all the different facets that we have in the UK, like squash or even paddle and tennis, they all have their own little associations and stuff, and they exist to promote and drive standards up. And I would like to see an association that recognised the private sector, not necessarily the behemoths that are Pure Gym and Gym Group, because they have their own agenda and they do their own thing, but more on the independent and maybe the sort of smaller chains and the franchises and stuff like that. An association that would help us promote and give us buying power, give us all those things that we're lacking at the moment. The only thing that I get from a UK Active membership would be they reduce my cost of my classes through the money that I pay to the music industry. PRS, yeah, I forget. So there's got to be ability. We've got all these gyms. Can we not buy our energy cheaper? We've got all these gyms. Can we not buy our insurance cheaper? All that stuff. And so we need someone to pull all that together. And now there are companies that do that, but we need an association, I think, that's there to represent us and pull it all together so that we can make our life easier. One of the things that came up fairly recently for me was a transgender issue. I mean, that's a transgender issue that we've got with changing rooms, etc. There's no guidance. There's nothing that I can see that helps me with that issue. I know Virgin Active had they got in the press recently about something like that, unfortunately. And
wasn't it a TV presenter? It was one of the news anchors, wasn't it? That had
who felt uncomfortable in the changing room, and it's a similar issue that I had, and I had to find a way to deal with it. And of course, I just go online and look for what's around, rather than thinking, well, my association would help me on that sort of stuff. And also the National Fitness. At the moment we have the National Fitness Day. Now, nobody can get fit in a day. No one can even notice anything in a day. We should have National Fitness Month. You have all these other months that you have every sort of awareness, but we don't do anything for national fitness, and we should be doing more of that. That should come from our association. Commit to Get Fit was an amazing campaign, as we discussed earlier. So we should be bringing that back. We should be talking to companies about how we can get their employees fitter, what the tax benefits are there. And in the past,
just to stop you quickly, tell people about the stories with the club chocolate.
We did that many, many years ago. This was in Cambridge, and we wrote to Jacobs, I think it was then, and said, we've got a campaign we want to run, which if you like a lot of chocolate on your biscuit, join our club, which was an advert that Jacobs used to run in the 80s. Ross is looking at me blankly because he's too young, aren't you?
I wish I was too young. Well, I do get it, unfortunately.
Okay, so we wrote to them, and they sent us 4 pallets worth of club biscuits. And what we had printed from a local printer was, we went round the wrapper in association with Jacobs, and we just went out with a free pass, every single chocolate bar, and we handed them out in the town centre in Cambridge. And it was an astonishing result. We had so many people coming in, because you just give them a chocolate bar and say, if you like a lot of chocolate on a biscuit, come and join our club. And it really worked. We did very, very well off it.
It's things like that. And the FIA used to do, what was the other one? The pasta. Didn't they link up with the National Pasta Association?
Yeah, we had a pasta night. So we basically, they just sent out a bunch of free pasta from what the big pasta company was. It was all fresh, and with an idea that everyone would hold a race night. So we had a race night in the club. We had, I think it was 150 members turn up for that one, and we had a race night. They gave us how to do it. It was all done for us, and we just cooked this pasta, and it was lovely. And it was all Dolmio, I think it was actually, and we just promoted Dolmio pasta for the Dolmio, but the members loved it, and that all came from the FIA.
And I think things like that are really important. It's almost as if we're doing that. Our bodies are doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, which I'm sure a lot of it is.
Yeah, I'm
is
sure
good.
They do tons.
You know what I mean? There's not knocking them for that, but the stuff that really supports the clubs, which is the campaigns, which is the awareness. I mean, it's when we were talking to DCMS, they were like, I'm sure we could find money if the campaign was right and whatever, but everything that you guys are asking for is things like VAT discounts, money back, this, you know what I mean, of the tax, rather than going, let's support a campaign. I mean, they give 40 million quid to Joe Wicks for a cartoon for kids. Now, I'm all for that. I think it's brilliant. Get kids into exercise. I like Joe Wicks. I can't fault him. But how can they give 40 million to that and nothing to drive the whole fitness industry?
Well,
I think it seems bonkers.
I think because we're so disjointed as an industry, we're so disjointed. Nobody's actually got an idea of what we're up to. No one knows the real number of memberships that we've got. No one knows what that gives. So, of my members, I've got 1,400 members. How many of those people are exercising regularly? How many of those people are achieving results? How many people have lost weight? How many have done this? How many have done that? How many heart attacks have we stopped in the 34 years we've been here? No one knows. It's all just, and that's the problem, I think, as an industry. We're not measuring stuff enough that we can show to government. If you spent 3 million quid on this, we'll give you 12 million quid back on savings for the NHS. We've never done it. And we don't do it, and no one's ever asked me the question. They just ask me, how many members did you have last year? How many members you got this year? That's all the information I ever give.
And I know Russ always says to me when we talk about those numbers, how many of those are actually using the club. So we say we've got 11 million members in our industry. how many of those are sleepers? Now, in most clubs, it always used to be 20-25%. So you've
Well,
got
we
potentially
all
two and a
found out in
half
COVID.
million
That's
people.
COVID woke them all up.
Well,
We
that's
all
true,
found,
but
yeah,
I'm sure the lists are growing again.
I'm
But
sure it is.
I think what we were talking about before, though, was because obviously we touched on, I'm pulling it back to community because we got, but we're talking earlier, and you were saying, the differentiator with a lot of these clubs is community. What we're talking about is actually giving some direction on how to build community, because I think a lot of, and these campaigns all go into it. What you're talking about. Obviously, you're very experienced in this, so you know how to build community. I think a lot of people sort of just hear, how do I build community? What do I do, a summer barbecue, or is that it? It's not this evolution of actually, right, we've got all of these clubs, we've got all these places. How do we make them places that people really want to go and engage with and make more people want to go into them? And I think there's a clear lack of any kind of, it's just, right, just build your gym and get people in there. And a lot of gyms unfortunately do that. And a lot of the franchise gyms do that as well. You'll go in there and they're just a mini pure gym charging twice the amount, but saying, yeah, but we're community led. Okay, how are you community led exactly? What are you actually doing for your members? And I think that's where there's a big gap as well on those campaigns coming out. And a once a year National Fitness Day, okay, it's fine, but there's more than one day in the year. So what are we doing the rest of the time? And I think that's where we could do with the body giving a consistent flow of, whether or not it doesn't necessarily need to be delivered as training. It's just a knowledge output and just the things that are working. And these are programs you can follow. I think there's a real gap around that as well, and I think that is leading to a lot of these clubs not necessarily filling the mandate that they could do on building community.
And there's some good points there. I mean, what during this journey that I've been on with Ryan, talking about the industry, etc., I've met people from the public sector that I've never spoken to before. I've always thought of them as the devil. They just suck money out of the whole area, and they just get given everything that they bloody ask for. They get all the best equipment every 3 years. Let's upgrade it. There's another bloody upgrade, and that was always been my opinion of it. And bear in mind, I used to be a local authority councillor, so I used to have that opinion when I was on there as well. And I got told off all the time for saying it. But it's clear that the local authorities also have some challenges, but they're very different to our challenges. When a local authority or one of these leisure trusts fails, people don't lose their houses over it. They don't lose their livelihoods; they lose their jobs, and that's the big
often
difference.
Don't do that either.
Yeah, quite often. Whereas the big difference in my world and in the independent sector is that these are livelihoods. These aren't just jobs. We've invested everything. We have had a house up in Hock at some point. We borrow against that. We do this, and everything we do, we sign in personal guarantees. Everything we do involves us putting our neck on the line, and that's just never, ever, ever recognised by CAACTIV, the powers that be. And I think one of the saddest things is that not libraries, bookshops and pubs are seen as community assets, but health clubs aren't. Gyms aren't seen as that community assets. We're just seen as money-making machines by the government, and we haven't managed to put ourselves in a position, which we talked about earlier with the community and everybody getting here, is that we actually are a space just as important as a pub, because people come here, they get together, they engage, all that sort of stuff, but no one ever talks about it. The planning laws are absolutely painful for a health club to get through, and there's no funding from government for us because we're not a community asset. They don't give a hoot. They just don't care. They just give us your tax, pay your money, and shut up. And
What's interesting? Talking about pubs, I read and it's American stat, but they reckon the alcohol industry in America is nearly $1 billion down because of a shift towards fitness over bars. The change in the youngsters' attitude towards drinking and stuff like that has changed so drastically. They reckon they're $1 billion a year down.
You can see that from the rugby. I mean, it's Guinness Zero they're advertising. Yeah, Guinness Zero. It's all over the pitch, and in the Six Nations they're advertising Guinness Zero, and that, I mean, it's quite a nice drink actually. I like Guinness Zero, but that was unheard of in rugby. I mean, Christ, you played rugby. I used to play it quite a lot, and you played rugby. You went to the bar afterwards. You got absolutely smashed. That was rugby. These days they don't do that. They drink zero alcohol beers and they head off because they're more health conscious than my generation are. But
Absolutely. I mean, the funny thing is, talking about communities, guys, if you have a look at sport in terms of like the football and stuff like that, I mean, those guys, I mean, take out the big money from TV and stuff like that. Most of the football clubs survive, especially lower leagues, on their communities. And they're incredibly good at bringing everybody together. Now, I know you're supporting one team, one outcome and that sort of stuff. But when you look at it, you sort of go, that's how you build it. You get everybody so connected to that one club that one, leaving's not an issue. Secondly, yeah, you're gonna carry on supporting it for life, and it's trying to create that sort of atmosphere within a gym environment
yeah,
because you're sort of going, you want so much ownership of the place that you go to that you just want to keep going back.
well, you only have to look at the growth of paddle. The growth of paddle has happened because it's a social sport. You know, there's four people get together. Quite often they don't know each other. They play together. And the way it all works, they use technology to bring them together and play the game. But then afterwards, they'll go for a drink and stuff like that. Probably a zero alcohol one. But you know, it's paddle has grown specifically because it's such a social sport, and you get to meet people, and then communities are growing up and things like that. It's I mean, the growth of paddle is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. I always think the studio timetables in a club are that similar thing. If whenever I've worked with clubs with a studio timetable, their retention always seems a lot higher because you've got people attending for the other people in the class, so they're going to meet their mates. Whereas the lone trainer doesn't necessarily always have that same, and it's a lot harder as well to build the community around a group of lone trainers in a gym than it is a studio class. That's why, if you can, on the onboarding, you get as many people into your studio trialing the different classes, because it does help with retention massively.
I feel for us as a gym, the differentiator for us is that we've got that wet side area where a lot of people come. You know, and if you talk to a lot of other operators, they'll say, "Oh, I bet people don't use your swimming pool." Ours is used. Ours is used a lot. It's probably the busiest area of the club because that's where people go after they've used the gym or the the bloke's gone in the gym and his girlfriend's gone in the class or whatever, which way around it is, and they meet down in the pool area and then they sit in the jacuzzi and the steam room and have a chat. And I think for a lot of independent gyms that don't have those facilities, it must be more challenging to build that community in a gym. Must be. But CrossFit did it. High Rocks has done it. Those are community based.
Now here's the difficulty with High Rocks. So I love it. I mean I can't compete in it because of my chronic fatigue, but I love it because it's making.
That's the reason.
That's the reason.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's
the reason I don't
do it
because I get too tired.
yeah, exactly. But in terms of the actual thing, it's created fitness into a sport. Now I know we've done this over the years with oh god, there used to be one back in the mid 90s. I can't remember what it's called now, but we've had different iterations of it over the years. But High Rocks is the latest one. The only challenge with High Rocks is because it's very competitive and it's almost elitist for those in the gym. It sort of scares those that are coming into the industry. So it's having that balance to go. Absolutely, we need High Rocks because it gives us that element of it. But let's not push the whole industry that way because we've got 99% of the population that are never going to go to that. It's a bit like trying to encourage people to run a marathon or do a triathlon. It's not really their thing. So it's sort of going, okay, keep that elitist, but let's not push the whole industry that way because actually we'll leave behind a lot of the people that are just coming to train normally.
So what you're saying is we should have a product called Shy Rocks.
Absolutely.
Shy Rocks for beginners, people that don't. Yeah, I'm a bit too shy to do that stuff.
But it's true though, isn't it? It's trying to get that balance and going, okay, and I guess this is the complication of what our industry is about. There's so many different things. I mean, it was quite interesting. About 4 or 5 months ago, we put out a post, didn't we? In terms of what's your idea of fitness? What is our industry? What does it stand for? And it went viral. And the amount of things that people came back with, it was wellness. It was everything from wellness to High Rocks. And you're sort of going, it's a little bit worrying that we can't even describe as industry professionals what our industry stands for.
Yeah, yeah,
And like, I'm not saying we can have one description, because we can't. Because like you say, you have high rocks, you have the boutiques, yoga, Pilates. It's so encompassing. So you do have wellness, and you do have the
yeah,
high intensity stuff, and it's very difficult. But when you're trying to then describe what our industry is, and then on the flip side, you have an organisation at the top that calls itself UK Active, looking at getting more people active, and you're sort of going, well, actually, does that then support fitness, which is what we're all about?
yeah. And I think, I mean, we've discussed before about UK Active when they made the decision to become not about fitness and become about getting people active, and that's fine. But there are already many organisations that do that stuff already, And when you're looking after, and it's got its place, of course, it has the Ramblers Association and stuff like that. There's already the Ramblers Association. Why are UK Active getting involved in that? There is one. There's already an association for paddle. There's already an association for tennis. Why are UK Active getting involved in that? Why have we not got a specific one that looks after fitness?
Swimming was an interesting one. I was having a conversation with some of the guys from the swimming world, and they're potentially moving away because they're creating their own.
Mhm.
Because, and I'm not saying they're going to leave UK Active or anything like that, but they're sort of going, well, we don't really need UK Active because it doesn't really drive what we're doing. We need a separate swim. So you've got Swim England and SDA and a few of the others are getting together, and they've created their own organisation. So they're looking after that. They don't need UK Active or SimSpa in all. I mean, SimSpa is different because it's training and so on,
Yeah,
but they pay a lot of money to these organisations. They're going, actually, guys, let's just bring it together. So you're sort of saying potentially we might be better even within our own fitness industry to go, absolutely, we have UK Active that are going to drive more people more active more often. Absolutely great idea, love it. You guys push that, and then we have an organisation for private clubs. The leisure centres have already got their own. I mean, they've probably got 3 or 4. Let's
I
be
mean, they've got the
honest.
LGA for starters, and then things like that. They're not that interested in what UK Active got to say.
No,
They're really not.
and they've probably got, because of the LGA, they've probably got closer ties to central government anyway than UK Active does.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I mean, they've got better angles in. So it might be that the industry would be better served splitting out and not trying to have one overseeing God for the industry as such, and almost have separate organisations that are niched down to their market sector, and then they work together.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think the industry, the fitness industry, health clubs. Now, because we're such a complicated industry, we have some health clubs are just a gym. Some gyms are they have exercise to music. Some have swimming pools. Some have tennis courts. Some have paddle courts. You'll pull all those different organisations into your own one. So for the tennis part of it, you'll be part of the LTA. For the paddle part of it, you'll be part of the Paddle Association. And if you happen to go rambling, for example, you might join the Rambling Association. I'm not picking on them, but I think we are massively underrepresented as the fitness industry, and I think it does our industry a disservice. We needed SimSpa. SimSpa was really important to try and professionalize and bring up the standards of the training in our. And I think there's still a journey to go on for that.
Well, Tara's coming on in March. She's going to come on and have a chat to us, so that'll be really interesting to see where they're going.
Yeah.
I know they're making some big changes to try and professionalise us, and I think they're doing some good stuff. To be fair,
They have. They've done some brilliant stuff, and it was necessary. We needed it because we were all over the place. And I think that again, there's a journey, and it'll be interesting to look at the stats for how many independent and private operators are engaged with SimSpa. Whether it's just the local authority stuff again, so you've got and the big companies, David Lloyd, etc. Whether they're engaged with SimSpa, and how many independent ones are, because I suspect it's quite low, and that's where we need to drive the professionalism up, is across the whole of the industry, not just the leisure trusts.
I mean, I can remember I've spent my whole career when people go, "What do you do for a living?" and you know what I mean. It's and you tell them and go, "Oh, okay," and you sort of go, hold on a minute. My job includes probably always is more flexible, more I mean, I'm learning more skills than probably most industries, and yeah, it's almost seen because it's someone else's leisure activity. It's never seen as a high profile career. It's like a lot of hospitality in the UK. I don't know why, but if you go to India, general managers of hotels are lauded like gods, like doctors, like surgeons. You know what I mean? They're on that same level. In the UK, it's just a job,
Yeah.
and a nicely paid one for some. But when you say you're a health club manager, for instance, it's like, okay, it's there isn't that level, and you're sort of going, actually, the lives we change, the impact we can have on people from, well, we all know it, depression to weight loss, the whole, we can change lives, but we're
Yep.
not seen in that, and I think that's some of it's our own fault. In terms of how we've set up the industry and the training we provide, but we need to work on that so that people want to join our industry. I mean, you well know our industry is massively short on general managers.
Yep.
Decent general managers. We just can't find them. The amount of clubs we work with, and they've had 4 or 5 managers in a year because it's just pipeline's not there, the training's not there. When we started, Matt, you used to go from gym instructor or might even be lifeguard to gym instructor to reception to sales to duty manager, and that just doesn't happen now. You go lifeguard to PT, freelance, and there's no progression. So when you're looking for managers, they just don't exist.
I mean, as an industry, it's getting harder and harder with staff anyway, because of the above inflation increases we've seen in the living wage, etc. Gym instructors have then become on the bottom level because we can't put our memberships above inflation because the members won't accept it. So I've been eating those costs over the years and years and years and years, and we get to a point where we're now looking and thinking, well, how's it going to continue? The national insurance increase, that was just a kick in the teeth. That was on top of everything that we've done, and the government's. I mean, they've done all these increases, and we haven't even finished paying back our bounce back loans yet. For Christ's sakes,
Yeah,
from and oh, drives me nuts. But the staffing is a massive issue because, and I've spoken to many about it, and it happens over and over again. Member of staff comes in, I train them up, I teach them how to be a good instructor. They then go and open up a garage in their gym, and they go into competition with me and take 20 of my members with them.
yeah.
And that's what has happened to me over and over and over again. And so you get to a point where you don't start trusting your staff anymore. And then how do you run your business when you don't trust your staff? It's a real problem. It's a real problem.
And I guess that's one of the challenges with the budgets coming in, because what they've done is they've driven the average price of the membership down, which has made it. I always talk in my training about anchoring. I read a really good book, and it was talking about people's perceptions are based on the anchor of what they've experienced previously. So if you've got all these people that see a pure gym for $9.99, the expectation is that's how much it should be, and that's just kept the rest of us' prices down. And actually, we're the cheapest form of entertainment that you can do. I mean, you can't go do anything else for the price. I mean, you use your club, what, 43 a month? You know what I mean? It's 10 times, it's £4.30 a session.
Yeah.
You can't go to the cinema for that. You can't buy a pint for that. You can't, you know what I mean? There's nothing else you can do for the price. We should be far higher at a price point than we currently are, and it's being held back.
Well, when we opened, so when we opened, because we opened in '92 and we only had the gym, we put the swimming pool area on in '96. So we would then put our prices from £30 to £36 a month in 1996. And here I am sitting at £43 a month. And if I'd done compound interest, etc., we should be £75 a month.
That's
if
what
I'd
I mean.
done that over that period of time, I should be £75 a month. But I can't possibly charge that. I wouldn't get away. I wouldn't exist.
And it's almost like the market's scared because of the budgets to lift that price point up, and especially in the regions. I mean, you can probably get away with it in certain places in London, but obviously with that comes the additional cost of your rent and everything else as well. So you
I mean, they did warn us. I mean, we got warned many years ago that it was a race to the bottom if we all just did it on price, and now we're all talking about it, and it's a real problem. It's a real problem. Yeah.
Well, let's try and leave on a positive note, Matt. So in terms of the future, do you see it looking bright? Obviously, we're looking at this idea of a private sector group. So obviously people should keep an eye out for that. We are working on that. But in terms of the future, do you see it as positive?
On the whole, yes, and I think because people are now looking at their health a lot more than they did when we first started out. We had to teach them why they needed a gym. So we were educating people, and we did all that sort of stuff. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. Now it's come and use us because we can do this and this and this and this. So it's changed a lot, and the services have changed a lot, and we've kept up to date with them as best we can. And I think for the industry, I think it's a positive time. I think it's difficult with not just this government. The last government were exactly the same on just piling the costs onto local businesses. They go, "Oh, we're putting more money in people's pockets," but it's not them putting it in their pockets. Actually, it's us because we're paying those wages. But it's nice of them to give our money away. And so I think government at some point needs to stop trying to kill the golden goose and realise that business needs to survive, because if businesses don't survive, there's no jobs. But they'll get there eventually. For our sector, it's a growing sector still. I know it's growing slow, and we'd like to get more people into the industry, but it's been a great start to the year for us as a gym. So we've had a good start. I'm feeling quite positive about how things are going forward. And I think, you do see, I mean, we've talked about Pure and Gym Group, but there are other operators as well, and they're opening sites, which is just brilliant. David
I think
Lloyd
it's really
growing.
positive when you see the likes of David Lloyd opening new ones, because they're at the top end of our sector. I know we have Third Space and Equinox and
stuff, yeah.
But they're not, they've still got small numbers of clubs, and although they're big clubs, they are relatively boutique. They're not. It'd be very hard to stick one of those in Birmingham or Leicester.
But they all, I agree. But they will, even if they did, they'll still be in the metropolitan areas and stuff like that. They're not coming out to the smaller towns that are out there,
suburbs,
like David Lloyd do.
Yeah. And that's why I always see David Lloyd as a benchmark. And I always think if you're seeing them build new clubs, I always think that shows real positive vibes for our industry, because obviously there's a lot of money that goes into those. They're not cheap, and it means they know they can command their price. So I think that's really positive seeing them.
I do too. I mean, I think with leisure centres, it's funny how they always find money for new leisure centres, but never to fix the roads, isn't it? It's really funny that.
I always told it was about. You have to understand it's a vanity project, and there's not many things they can do to make it look like they're actively doing something. So if you fill the potholes and stuff like that, another pothole will come up, and they don't get any reward from that back.
Yeah, well, no one notices a good road, do they? They only notice a bad road.
No, exactly. And so a nice big leisure centre always helps with the voting, doesn't it? Always makes it look good, whether it's viable, whether it's. I'm sure most of them are. I just think it's obscene when you look at some of the costs.
I think it's viable because they don't charge
5 million.
They don't add to the exchequer in any way. They just take. They don't pay their VAT. That just drives me nuts. How can they not pay VAT? How have they put VAT on education in private schools, yet they haven't in their own leisure centres? How have they done that? It's insane that they're not doing it. I wouldn't say we need a VAT cut in the industry, because of course they're not going to do that. But what we do need is the leisure centres to start paying their way a bit more, and they need to contribute. I think we've done enough contributing now,
especially when the private sector doesn't get any access to the government money when it comes to projects locally and stuff. It all goes through the leisure centres. It's like the money that was distributed for pools.
Yeah, when we set up our GP referral scheme, we had one of the GPs who was a member here, and he came to me and he said, "Why have you set that up?" And I said, "Because we want to do a little bit and try and get people exercising that need to be exercising." He said, "I'm not going to do that. I don't want my patients exercising in the same gym as me."
Is that what he said?
Yeah. He's retired now, because we've been doing it a long time. But when you've got those kind of attitudes, it's a real problem, isn't it? And that's what we're battling against as private operators all the time.
I still think there should be some grant funding out there. I mean, we had the guy not long ago talking about how to access these funding, and it's not an easy process. It can cost you thousands to win the thousands, and chances are you've got to be in the process quite a few times before you get picked. So you can spend a lot of money, and you can understand, and it should be a lot simpler. I'm a big believer that lottery money should be available, not just to charities. I don't see why it should be charities, because technically that would mean GLL, who have 200 odd clubs, could technically, I'm not sure they do or not, but could technically get lottery funding for some of their projects, but yet you can't.
Yeah,
and that's ridiculous. I mean, they're a behemoth of a company. That's. I mean, probably make enough money to be on the stock exchange. You know what I mean? They're huge.
and the phrase charity, I mean, it's just bandied around. You know, they're charities, etc. I probably do as much for my community as they ever do. My local community, I probably do just as much as they ever do. We do all sorts of different schemes. There's another place in Ely that do free classes for people, so that they, you know, if they're on benefits and stuff like that, they get no grants for that. They just do it because they want to.
Yeah.
There are loads of people out there just doing free stuff and helping people. Yet GLL or whoever it may be, there's lots of those kind of organisations. They just get all the bloody benefits. You know, it drives me. Oh, honestly, it's not
It
balanced.
drives me mad, and I genuinely think there needs to be. And I know it's not an easy thing to do. Don't get me wrong. You've worked as a counsellor. You know how slow they are and how hard to change and everything else. Everybody's got their own reasons for doing things, so it wouldn't be an easy thing. But I genuinely think there should be almost a integrated health program within each district, and as part of that, private clubs get the opportunity to be part of whatever that program is, and they can access the grants, they can access the government support, and almost it would take the pressure off massively off the councils,
Yep,
because they wouldn't need to build these huge centres, because a lot of the stuff should be picked up by the private sector. And the other thing to remember as well, Matt, a lot of people don't want to join a leisure centre. If you think, it doesn't matter how new it is or whatever, you're not going to get a David Lloyd member joining a leisure centre. You're just not. You're not going to get one of your members joining a leisure centre. It's the same as the budget clubs. They attract a certain type of member.
I think there are leisure centres, and then there are leisure centres though. You know, some of the leisure centres, they're really quite swish.
Yeah,
they're really they are, and they can spend a lot of money on their equipment and a lot of money on their facilities and make it look they're really quite snazzy. And that's not fair. It's just not bloody fair. They've got all this money, and they can buy all this new stuff all the flipping time, you know, and it's not a level playing field at all.
I mean, the equipment providers, I mean, your dad must have loved working with them. You know what I mean? Because every 3 years it's getting replaced. You're like, happy days.
Well, again, in those days, these leisure trusts didn't exist. That wasn't a thing. You know, GLL had one site, Greenwich Leisure, that was in Greenwich. And I remember going there. You know, they just didn't exist, these massive things. What's happened is governments have lent on them more and more and more, and changed policies to make them that they can grow. You know, why is a company from Greenwich running a leisure centre in Ely, for crying out loud? How well do they know Ely? They're not part of the community. They're doing the same stuff that they're doing in somewhere else in the country, and they're one of their other 200 sites or 300 sites. How many they've
got? Absolutely.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll leave it there, Matt. We'll leave it as a pondering note for people to consider. But I appreciate you coming on today. I know we've been working on this for quite a while, and obviously things will come out soon as to what we're doing. But I appreciate your time. And if anybody's got any questions, then they can get in touch with myself or you or Russ.
Ping him to Russ first, because he jumped off early. Yeah, he's not here to defend himself, so give them all to Russ.
Perfect. Well, awesome. Appreciate your time this morning, Matt.
Cheers, mate.